Hello there everyone, it's Brian Cockerill on my YouTube channel. I'm with Jon Wedger today. I'm going to let this man explain what he's going to be talking about today. It's going to blow your mind. He's an ex-police officer, 30 year, and you know I don't talk to police, but I've talked to this man. He needs to know what he's doing. I'll just hand you over to Jon now and let him explain his credentials and what he's about.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
You know, and they've made me a brew. I do my podcast, Brew with a View. I always have a cup of tea and a chat. Well, I was invited up here. Brian got in touch, and this network has formulated, which I think is incredible. And it's people with a common goal, and the common goal is we don't like child abuse.
No, not at all.
And it's like glue. It's brought us together, you know. Yeah. And it has. And the other thing is, you know, we're all people of God. We believe that God wants us all to get together to stop this. So
that's true.
My background, what sort of brings me to this place, is I'm a retired police detective. I retired with a 27.5-year pension, but I was also a whistleblower.
Right.
Because my specialisation, Brian, was I become a detective quite early.
Right.
Because I just didn't like wearing uniform, to be honest. You know. Yeah. And then I just sort of morphed. I used to look like the detectives, how they worked on their own. And a strange thing is, I just tell you why I whistle blew, and then I'll go back to the beginning if I may, because it ties in a bit with some of the stuff I've heard you say in the past.
Yes.
It's something we was mentioning earlier. I blew the whistle and made allegation of corruption in 2014 against very, very senior UK officers for the cover-up of child prostitution.
Yeah, which I think is very brave to come up with, yeah.
Well, instead of investigating these officers, they investigated me, and I spent nearly a 3.5-year campaign subject to a bullying campaign. I was under surveillance for 1.5 years, 9 attempts to imprison me. I brought 4 kids of my own. They tried to. I was threatened with the loss of my home, my job, and my children if I spoke out about what I'd found out and what I knew about child prostitution and the cover-ups. I now know so much more, having done what I do now. But I nearly lost my home. Because they never paid me for 3 years. Ended up working on building sites to pay my mortgage. The bank, it was only because someone from the bank came round and had a heart, said, we won't take your home off you.
So basically they treated you like a criminal.
It was horrendous what they did. I mean, the lies they put together.
Yeah.
I remember saying to one of my friends, if they can do it to me, you think if you're not a cop what they can do.
Yeah.
While one of my kids was, I'll go into it in a bit more detail, one of my kids was dying in hospital. I came home. He was in intensive care. He'd actually been dead for about 10 minutes. He did survive, and this will be what brought me to God. I don't know what I mentioned that. Yes. I came home and I was arrested for child abandonment, child neglect, and then there was 9 cases to the CPS to put me in prison. Amazing. You know, but you know, I fought back. I now campaign solidly for justice for victims and survivors of abuse. Brilliant. And protection for police whistleblowers. I started doing it with an ex-criminal. He'd been in the institutions all his life, called Bill Maloney, a tough guy. Right. You know, a hard man from London, and he teamed up with myself. He had a production company called Pie Mash Films, and they did a fantastic documentary about Hope Delivery and Kids Home. And then from there, I basically went on my own, and I've just using the medium of social media to get my story out. And then I started working with Chris Lambriano, the ex-Craig guy.
Fantastic bloke. Yeah.
Oh man, what it just makes me smile even when I think of the guy. You know,
he's a wonderful man.
I mean, I call him Uncle Chris, and from there, Chris introduced me to this ex-con sort of community. Yeah. But we were all coming from. I mean, there's a few people that I've got no interest in associating with because they're still active in what they do. That's their life, and I'm not no interest in that. But there's some, like yourself and Terry, and
we've changed our life to Christianity, my wife and I. So
turn their life.
It's phenomenal, isn't it?
Turn their life away.
Jesus does exist.
And our enemy's the devil, and the devil hates the kids. Yeah. You know, and what men are we if we allow that to happen?
And the greatest thing the devil ever achieved was letting people think he didn't exist. Yeah.
And hopefully, I can shed a bit more light on that and prove that this is live and well, and he's active.
Buzzing the air off this. It's really good.
Well, so what happened was I joined the police, and I can remember I was in a rough part of London, southeast London, beginning of the 90s. There was a lot of heroin and crack cocaine about, and the police's attitude back then, when I joined, it was classed as a disciplined service. It was very military run.
Right.
They say it's a civilian police force, but it was all run by ex-servicemen.
Yeah.
Guardsmen would take you for marching, and the PT staff were in the army, and the structure was very disciplined, and there was a very much a them and us situation.
Right.
So when you went out, got sent out, dispatched out, it was a bit like a call to war, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Off you go, you know? And they totally divested themselves, detached themselves from the community in many ways, you know?
Yeah.
And I can remember there was a lad in a custody suite, and I was a jailer that night, and I went round and I used to always have a packet of cigarettes.
Right.
And I used to always give someone a cigarette and have a chat with them.
Yeah.
You know, it's just what I did. Anyway, so I said, would you like a cigarette? And he would been shouting and screaming. And I used to give them DFs back then, you know, the heroin substitute things, to knock them out. And I don't think they were prescribed. They used to have a packet of them and give them a DF.
Yeah.
And I said, what's the matter, mate? And he said, oh, I'm rattling. I'm really in trouble. I'm a heroin addict. But he was the same age as me.
Yeah.
And I said, well, why? Why the heroin? He went, well, take me for a cigarette, I'll tell you. So he went for a cigarette and he went, if you had my life, you'd be on it.
Yeah. I know where you're coming from here. Yeah.
I went, what? And then it was a kid's home, the sexual abuse.
Yeah.
And I couldn't comprehend it.
Yeah.
I'm like, seriously? And he went, mate, most of the junkies you get in here, the smackheads, the brownheads, the crackheads, whatever the terminology, he said, they will all be the same as me, mate.
Yeah, yeah.
And it changed. It totally had a change. Yeah. My career didn't change much from that thing. I still carried on, but I always remembered that. And I had a
catalyst to what
it was. It definitely was, Brian. And it lit the fuse really, and it stopped the judgment. Yeah. You know, there was still that battle on the street, you know, and all that. So that still went on, but it sort of took away my judgment really. So from there, I then I just wanted to go into the CIDs. So I ended up moving up to the West End, become a detective, and then my missus left me with 4 kids.
Right.
So I had them, and I thought, what am I going to do? So a job come up, and it was on the river police, working on the boats on the River Thames. Yeah. So I went there because I could get home for my kids. So the shift pattern allowed me to be at home for the kids. I was thinking, brilliant. They let me sleep on my nights. So one of the sergeants come up and he went to me, what are you doing here? And I went, I know, I was bored, totally bored. There was nothing to do, and it wasn't me. And I wanted to interact with people, and they didn't. And he turned around and he said, look, this stuff's come up from the Home Office. Yeah. There's a lot of paedophiles living on canal boats. I was like, oh, okay. He said, look, we run the canals, we've got governance for the canals. Look, we've had intel from the prison system that paedophiles are being released and they're living on canal boats because they haven't got to sign a sex offenders register.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Go and look at it, and you can basically work from home. You can leave from your home. Yeah. So I lived on the canal, and it led into London, so I used to cycle my bike, and my job was just to find these canal boats. Right. And find out who lived on them. So he said, look, there's 2 on there. If you can find 2 more in the next 3 months, we'll be happy with you. Within a month, I found 90.
90
paedophiles, and they were
But in only one small part.
Yeah, well, they were in clusters, right? You know, and I thought, what the hell's going on? So they sent an intelligence worker to come down with me, right? And they did like geographical profiling, and they found out that they were in certain places, and there is a reason. It's a longer story. It's a presentation in its own right, but they were a paedophile community. Yeah. But then what happened? Then names started coming in. Yeah. And it started linking into people in government. Right. And it started linking into connections with police officers. It started spreading into this other world, right? So all of a sudden I get pulled by a detective from the paedophile unit and said, look, I need to tell you something. And he was at Scotland Yard, and he said, if you do good in any sort of crime fighting, they love you. You know, you're the king of the heap. Yeah. You do good in this, it's the opposite.
You'd think it would be number 1, wouldn't you?
Yeah, think it'd be number 1. Yeah. And I was like, right. He said, listen, we've had info on a Home Secretary twice for raping young boys. Yeah. Twice. And he said, and each time it's been shut down, it's been closed down. Yeah. And he said, right, be very, very careful, he said, because your name is being mentioned now in the corridors, and they're not happy with what you're uncovering. He said, they're probably
getting to the truth, and you're getting touching on them, yes.
But then what you start seeing then, Brian, is a conspiracy. So they call people conspiracy theorists. Yes. And then you get people saying, high up, they don't want me doing this. And well, where's
That's
the
a
proof?
word to use that you're a crackpot, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I started seeing it then, right? And I realised that then there has been this cover up when there's been government involved in raping children.
Yes.
Right, so I came into work and the senior officer said, I need to have a word with you. He said, we're shutting you down. I went, why? It's highly successful. It was a national thing. I was going all over the place with it. And he went, you can't carry on doing it because we can't afford to lose you. We need you back. Yeah. I went, oh, come on, that's the nonsense. They don't do anything. And then he said, look, I'm telling you now, it's come from high up. You've got to back down. You've gone too deep.
Right. So you're uncovering the truth in the wrong places, but in your right places.
So this was the first time, Brian, that I realised that there was a conspiracy of silence.
Yes.
So I've already heard it now about Home Secretary. Yeah. Right. I couldn't name him, but I don't want to name it on your channel because I want you to keep going, mate. I don't want anyone trying to stop. They will look at any reason to shut you down.
Yeah.
So
any excuse.
Any excuse. So you can look at my other chats. I've boldly stated who this Home Secretary is. But I'm not putting that on Brian on there. We've got to keep going, and you've always got to use your wisdom over your mouth sometimes with this. So then I went to the Vice Unit. Now the Vice Unit was a specialist unit, a Scotland Yard unit, and they were to do with prostitution, gambling, I don't know, nightclubs and all that, And London, it's got the majority of the casinos, some of the biggest paid casinos.
Yes.
It's got all the top nightclubs, and it's got a big red light area, and it's got a lot of corruption around the red light area, Soho, and it had things like the meat rack, which was an area in Piccadilly where young boys were traded. It was an open secret. There were young girls. The rumours. The moment I started, what young girls were being pimped out on the street. And there were prostitutes involved. Yeah, and so I went onto this unit, and they sent us out to go and pick up the prostitutes, and basically just nick them so they get fined, right? Yeah. And they weren't interested in the kids. Yet the kids were cropping up on briefings, Yeah. I couldn't believe it. So we went out, and it was basically competition. So to see if you could nick 100 prostitutes in a week, then you were the top team. Yeah. And then they'd let you have a night off and things like that. Right. And funny enough, one of the prostitutes that I used to nick, she ends up working with us now. She's part of our team. She doesn't class herself as a prostitute. It's a clipper. It's a difference. But I mean, I'm just saying it for argument's sake because I don't want to insult her because she's my mate. Yeah. But she said, we was discussing. I said, how many times have you nicked her? She went, about 10, John. I said, I remember you.
So you must have been all right with them because obviously you wouldn't have that bond and trust,
Of course, and also, the police are always out for intelligence. Yeah. I mean, and they are. They say that. It all runs on intelligence. It's when people go, they've had me under surveillance. No, mate, your mate's grasped you.
Yeah.
Because you've got a better card than him.
Yeah.
Or he fancies your missus, or your ex-missus has gone and said, and that's how people get caught. They get grasped on.
Yeah, of course they do.
I remember being in a pub once.
Information received is a favourite word in the world, isn't it? And it's someone the best friend or the person that was doing it. Yeah. There's so much corruption.
It was and that was another side of it. Like going about the intel and how all that works, and that's when it gets very dark as well. Yeah. So we were out on the patrol one night. There's a little girl. We seen her come out. She'd gone back in the bushes, but she'd been walking up and down this road. And she was 14, but she was a little girl anyway, and she was on heroin and crack. 14. She looked 12. Yeah. And she's dressed to look like 12.
Deliberately, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, we caught her, and all of a sudden, the time stops because she's got to come into care now. Yeah. Because she's at risk. Yeah. And that's what we should have been doing anyway. Yeah. So I took her into care, and sometimes, and we got to be honest about this, some of the kids that you deal with, they're horrors. They hate the old Bill. They've come from a whole lineage of hating the old Bill. Yeah. They're on heroin as well, so want the heroin, so they're not going to be nice, and they're going to kick off, they're going to shout, spit, swear, and everything else. So anyway, we get her in the car, and I put her up to the control, said, look, we're off the road with this young girl, and they went, get her out now. Yeah. I went, you all right? I went, get her out now. Now bear in mind, if anyone has sex with a girl, that's statutory rape. Yeah. So they were interested in an offence which was summary only, magistrates court only, loitering, right, which is a 20 quid fine, 50 quid fine, whatever. Yeah. Whereas there could be a 30-year sentence if someone's having sex with that girl. Yeah. And I went, why? She goes, she's got scabies. Right. She's going to infect the car, and you take her back to Nick, she'll infect the Nick. And she's a pain in the arse anyway, just get rid of her. Tell her to F off. And so we had to throw her out. You know, a 14 year, I mean, honestly, she was tiny, this little girl. You know, of course, that's what they want. So that was my second look into it. And then
all the intel started to gather, though, was the
of
momentum.
course.
Yeah, yeah.
And what was happening was that there was one prostitute in particular that was procuring the girls, and they knew about her.
Yeah.
And they never made any attempt to go and get her.
Right.
And there was rumours that she was involved with a copper.
She's probably one of the ones who was grassing all the ones up.
Yeah, well, they do.
And
this is the other thing that they do, you know.
Yeah.
And they were frightened of she'd beat them up as well. But she had, and what they would do, the cops when they go on Vice, they'd only go and arrest the pretty ones that were compliant. The ones that were aggressive, they didn't want to touch them.
Right.
You know, they'd kick off, and or some would smear themselves with stuff and all that. So they wouldn't, you know, we don't want to. So the ones that, so there was a lot of flirtation going on between the cops. You started seeing that happening quite a bit, and this girl who was running, her name was Foxy. She was very flirtatious with the. She'd been convicted, so that's allowed, saying her. Yeah. But then one little girl made an allegation that she was being pimped out.
Right.
So she was. How old was she? I think she was about 14, but she said it'd been going for the last 2 years. Mm. So they said to me, "Look, go and talk to this girl. She's a liar. She's a right pain in the arse." And they called her a scrote. So I went to this kid's home.
Who's this saying this?
It was senior officers, like well, supervising officers, you know. Yeah. And they just put it that she said she's made 2 allegations. She's a little crackhead, you know. Yeah. She's probably lying. Get rid of the case. Right? Yeah. Put it, you know. I went to see her and she wouldn't talk to me. Right, but I had a little lighter and it was like a little frog. And as you pressed its head, this flame come out its mouth, right? And she went, "Can I have it?" I went, "Don't work like that. Yeah. Tell me what's happening, that's yours." And she went, "I'll tell you everything." Yeah. I went, "Really?" So I passed the lighter. I said, "Don't set fire to this security unit." I mean, well, and she went, and she told me everything. Right. And once it started, it didn't stop, you know. Yeah. And she was being pimped out, she was traded out. She said, "I know all the places." She said, "It ain't just me. Yeah. There's so many." So I said,
but you couldn't believe it, could you?
No.
Yeah.
And I said, "Who's doing it?" So she named the girl who's doing it. She said, "In the police, she hides us in bushes, John, and the police go by." And she said, one day we were there, she put us in this bush, me and another girl, and the cop car comes out, so Foxy, the main prostitute's there, goes up to the police car, leans in and lets them lift her skirt up and lets them touch her and then blew them a kiss or whatever, kissed or whatever, and she said they were all squeezing her, kissing her ass, and then she waved them by and she said, "We was just in the bushes and we were being pimped out." Yeah.
What does this make you feel like?
Well, you just can't believe it. You know, you sit there and think, this is like something out of a film.
Make me horrible,
You know, and she said there's hotels, so she went through the whole structure. And she said there's a judge as well, there's a judge. And there was someone from the BBC. Still going. So this had been going on, I found out, for nearly 15 years.
Wow.
And what really changed
the police knew, obviously, and what about the police officers?
And what made it worse was this little girl, she secured a prosecution, the first prosecution in London under this legislation. She was found dead shortly afterwards. And so a lot of what I do is in memory of this poor little girl. Because the bravery.
How did you bring it to tears and stuff? Yeah.
There was Yardie boys involved in it, in distributing them, and it totally turned its head on really who's who and what's what and who's hard and who
shame on them.
Shame on all of them. Shame on all of them. It was
and the
just
ones who were covering it up. Shame on them and all.
And what it also did was it altered what I deem is a paedophile. See, everyone thinks it's like some bloke in his 50s lived with his mum with milk bottom glasses and you know. But it's not. I mean, it's all sorts. It's all colours. It's all ages. We were getting some lads in their 20s, good-looking guys who were having sex with these 12-year-old girls and then passing them on to others. And, you know, and what I want to say is we hear a lot in the papers about Muslim grooming gangs. But
it's everyone.
It's everyone and everything. And you know, we hear about them in Rotherham, Rochdale, Bradford, Luton, that. London is the most diverse city in the world. Yeah. It's the most densely populated city in the Western world. Yes. Not one case. No. And what we got in London, we've got Parliament, we've got the wealth, we've got everything. So
what I call them as London Parliament is legalised gangsters.
It's unbelievable. Who work with impunity.
Yeah.
So what happened was that this one girl gave me another girl, gave me another girl, gave me another girl, gave me another girl. And it went on and on and on and on. We had so many kids involved. It was just phenomenal. And
Did you get any convictions of these people?
Well, not of the people using the kids, no,
Right,
the customers, but the one that was trading them out, she did go away.
Yeah.
But so you started seeing how it all worked, this organised criminality, how it worked.
Sense, I think, and you can't do nothing really, even though you're trying your hardest. You can't put people away.
Well, you know, the fact of the matter, they put all their effort, and someone said to me, all they'll ever do is pick low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
You know, all their effort into minor crap, really.
Yeah.
You know, some lads dealing drugs out their mouth will get 8 years.
Yeah.
And yet they're trading kids. And they're not just trading kids, they're ruining these kids. These kids have got syphilis, they've got HIV.
Yeah.
They've got, I mean, one girl, she was being sent out, and you know, and I make no excuses for this, but it's not nice. She was being sent out, and she would actually ooze pus out of her vagina because she had cysts so big from infection, and they were just working her. Yeah. One lad, his anus was so torn.
So sad thinking about the kids.
I mean, there was one little kid who did die. He died of HIV, and they were still working him, and he was dying. And he was from a kid's home. He was a little kid that needed protection, and they were doing this. And you know, so I put it together. So they were being traded at the lower level. They'll be taken to a crack house, and they'll be exchanged. A girl will be exchanged for 10 rocks. So there'll be all the crack dealers and that would take, and some of these were young, so-called tough guys, you know, would take the girls for an hour, and then they'd say, right, here's 10 rocks to the procurer, to the prostitute girl. And then on the other hand, they'd be taken to a posh upmarket Mayfair restaurant where they'd be traded for 500 quid an hour to some rich Arabs or a judge. So I thought, right, well, this has got to go down on paper. So I did a report, and it was all based on fact. And the social worker was on board with us, saying, John, it's been going on for years, and I've got evidence. So I literally did this report. I sent it off thinking, because there was two of us, there's just me and a girl working on this. And I was thinking, right, that's it, that's the end of it. We're going to get more staff, and we're going to get a car, and we're going to get overtime budget and everything. But in the end, I was dragged in, to cut a long story short, by this guy who's now one of the UK's most senior officers. Dragged me in, and he said to me, what the effing hell have you done? He said, if you mention a word of this, you will be thrown to the wolves. You will lose your home, your children, your job. You have no idea who or what you're dealing with. This goes so deep. He said, no one will protect you. He said, shut the F up. You've got to. And he said, no, I'm telling you now, you've got to take it seriously. And that was it. I mean, I was petrified. So now, Brian, we've got the second time now. So I've gone from one specialist job where I could have retired there doing sod all with my career, but I looked into child abuse, bang, shut down. Now the second one of the best jobs you could have got, could have taken me all around the world. I could be giving talks on it, you know, universities now. Bang,
But isn't it strange when you get, like, say, they'll go to a crack house, they'll have all the police, they'll have the cameras there and everything, kick the door, and there'll be 4 people getting nicked with a couple of bits of gear, and they'll get all the paved and everything. You're doing something like this, it's horrific, and they've got no cameras enough to follow you. And they have to have the cameras there, follow them and everything, because you've got the right to video. That would have stopped them doing it.
And who else would they have uncovered it?
Exactly, and people would have come forward, wouldn't they then?
So what happened then was, I was bricking it. You know, I was sitting there thinking, what do I do? You know, my life had just been crushed. But I knew that the way he said it, you know, he was actually he was threatening me, but he was also pleading with me.
Not to do it.
You're going to lose it all. You know. But he said, you've got no idea who or what you're dealing with. Now, I thought I was just dealing with a load of perverts who like sex with kids. I was later to learn I was dealing with a very dark,
top of the top
organisation, which really basically binds all the criminality together.
Do you think a lot of it to do with saying there's
100%?
100%.
It is satanically linked. And people are going to sit there and go, John, what are you saying? But everything I say, Brian, I want to evidence and quantify this. So we've taken that big leap from child abuse to Satanism. But I'm telling you what, it is ultimately that.
I've heard about it for a long time, and I've never talked to an expert like yourself. And if it did talk myself, I think I'm a crackpot. Well, obviously you know this because it's your game.
But then from there, Brian, I then they said, so I thought, I can't work here anymore, but I was offered any job I wanted.
Right.
So I then went from there. I went to a child abuse unit. So this is basically in any sort of like borough of any city or town or whatever, and you'd be dealing with allegations of abuse, not prostitution, but abuse. So people hitting it.
So you could have any job you wanted, but you took this one.
I took that, yeah,
because you wanted to
work with the
expose
kids.
them, yeah.
And the other thing, I couldn't sleep. It kept eating me up.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
And this little girl then died, and it taught. Honestly, it did, and it was a catalyst for me moving away, but also to move away from the police and do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
One way or the other, I was going to keep going, with or without them.
This way you became the whistleblower.
Yeah. So I actually shut my mouth at that point.
Yeah.
Because I was frightened, and my kids were still young.
Right.
But they started getting older. So I went to this other unit, and it was in a really built up inner city area of London. It was Tottenham was in Haringey, so we had Tottenham and parts of Hackney, real rough East End area. And I said to someone, what was the demographics? And they said, well, you'll be given your job to do, your investigations, but you to take on another role on your downtime. There was never any downtime, so it was a waste of time. Yeah. And I said, is any of them to do with child prostitution? I went, yeah, funny enough, the girl who had that job looking at child prostitution, and that's how they termed it back then. Now they call it sexual exploitation, but it's it's an argument over semantics, and it's she said she did it for 2 years. She's just gone to have a kid, and she left. I said, how'd she get on? Is there any notes? She went, none, because she never found any. It's not a problem in this borough. So what?
I can see what's going to come here.
Right. So what I did was, well, can I have this job? They went, yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, we've got contact social services. So gave me the contact. So I literally got the phone, rung up, and I rung up the department I needed, and I said, look, I told them what I was doing, and I said, can you send me a list of all the kids' homes? They said, yeah, we've got loads on this borough. Yeah. We'll send them through to you. So this list come through. Now, they're not like the big Bernardo's homes. These are like a business. You buy an old Victorian home with maybe 6-7 bedrooms, and you'll shove a kid in each one, right? Yeah. So the kids will be taken out of a domestic situation, put in there. There'll be a desk with someone there that lets people in and out, and they'll have an onboard social worker in there, and people that will cook for them and everything else. Yeah. But they weren't catering. There was no care there. There was no love there. It was purely a business in which whoever you could buy it. You could get the Dalton's Weekly and buy a kid's home, like you buy old people's home. So they were getting $2,000 a week per child, and the more crackers the kid was, and I mean that respectfully out there, because I do get harangued for anything, because I talk about Satanism, anything I say. Yeah. I mean, what did I say the other day? I said, fled. Oh my word, the attacks I got from people for saying that. Yeah. So I try not to.
You just said it again.
Yeah, I know. You wait, it'll come. You watch. They'll be Jon Wedger just attacking disabled.
I know you come from a yoga and come with these. I can see this.
But this is what they do. Yeah. So what happened was they'll get more money. So these care homes are getting $10,000 a week, right? So I rang up the first one and I said, look, my name's John. This is my job, and just check in. No problem. No one's in any trouble here. No. And the manager went, okay. I said, how many kids you got? He went, 5. I said, how many of them did you lose at the weekend? He went, 3. I went, you know what I mean by losing, being pimped out? He went, yeah, 3. Yeah. And I went, every weekend? He went, yeah. So I did that. So it was within 10 minutes, right, I found 3 kids.
More than this woman who'd
been
waiting for
2 years.
In 2 years, yeah.
By the end of 5 days, I found 52 children, right?
Phenomenal.
And I'll put down 50 on the report, but it was actually 52 kids, right? And I was thinking,
do you think, I'm not being rude or anything, do you think she might have been getting paid to look the other way?
I just think that she was,
or just being, couldn't be bothered.
What you're going to get, you're going to get police corruption. Yeah. Right? But there's usually money involved with that. And, and I like to talk about it if I can, about police corruption. Yeah. But you get a lot of it is incompetence and laziness. Right. It served her well to go home.
Just turn a blind eye.
They don't want to know. It's too much hassle. Right. She needs to pick her kid up from the creche. Yeah, yeah. And she wants to go home, and her husband wants his dinner, and that's near enough what it was, So we had all these kids going. Yeah. And I'm thinking, flipping hell, what am I going to do with this? So I think, right, I've got to hold a meeting. So I held a meeting. And I brought in the social services, I brought in a leading kids charity, I brought in all these independent, they call them NGOs, non-government organisations. I brought them all in and I sat them all down and said, look, this is the problem. Anyway, the head for social services who deals with exploitation, she started shouting at me. She said, "What the F have you done?" She said, "My God, we can't deal with this. We've got to put care plans in for all." But you knew about these kids. She went, "Yeah, but while they're on the street making money, they're shutting their gobs. They're all right. They behave themselves."
Yeah.
And then someone from a leading kids charity.
Yeah.
And I would say to people, if you want to invest your money, go independently. You know, they don't serve the children.
No.
These domestic ones, they really don't.
Yeah, it's just about the money.
Yeah, it was about the money. She shouted me down as well.
I mean, you can't believe this, can you, when you're listening to it?
But the other thing with this, Brian, is that it started looking at these kids that were missing were classed as missing persons.
Right.
So these kids go missing. So there's a missing persons unit, right?
Yes.
That's meant to be interviewing everyone that comes back from being missing or is found. What happened to you and all that. These kids were going missing, at least 50 of them every week. Every single week. So at the end of a year, I don't know how many that is, 50 a week for 52 weeks. I mean, that's, I don't know, do the maths, maybe it's 2,500, 25, I don't know. But it's thousands on one borough.
Yeah.
So in the whole of London...
One's too many.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you're talking tens of thousands of kids going missing, straight into prostitution.
Yeah.
But they're coming back, yet no one's meant to be dealing with them. Yet the Vice unit had no interest, and this unit, the next thing I know, I come into work after this meeting, they said you're being moved. And I got shifted.
Again.
I got moved again.
Yeah. So it's obviously what you're doing your job right and properly. Yeah.
And then I was advised to take a job teaching
again
because it will be better for my health, my mental health.
Right.
If I spent more time, getting a regular job so I could go home. And
what type of teacher? Like a school teacher?
Well, it was teaching detectives how to interview.
Right, I was going to say, right.
Teaching detectives how to interview. Right. It was good because it was a platform for me really to tell them this.
Yeah.
But then
and gives you a rest and all a little bit because you must have been exhausted.
I was, but then I got disciplined for taking them to the pub drinking on duty. So disciplined for that, So, but
you're a bit of a rebel, aren't you?
Man. But I was telling them, look, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And then what happened was Jimmy Savile, Sir Saint Jimmy,
vile man.
The man who built hospitals and was seen as a saint. I mean, I think. He was a gift from God because without him being exposed, we'd have never known, would we?
Exactly, yeah.
It's such a perverted way of looking at it.
It's a good way of looking at it,
and when he got exposed, by this time my mental health was deteriorating because this little girl had died and it was coming out. And when it came out about Jimmy Savile and then other officers were coming forward, I was like,
what's happened is the hearts are starting to melt, realising they've not done the job, and now we've got a chance to make amends.
I thought it was on my own. I thought it was just me. Right, because this is what they do when they bully you. They put it all on you, a bit like a battered wife. Look what you made me do. Look at you. And I sat down and thought, I'm not alone. So I got in touch with one other whistleblower, and then I got in touch with another one. So there was one from the north up here. There was one from Jersey, the Channel Islands. And all of them have been bullied.
It must have been like a breath of fresh air.
I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, to be on your side. Yeah.
And then politicians started saying, look, come and talk to us. So I talked to a few politicians and they were saying, look, we knew about this politician, that politician. And I thought, right, I've got to speak out. So I thought, well, now's the time. So but what I was doing was I was actually trying to instigate a situation where a senior officer would have intervention with me because I become fearful of senior officers.
Right.
Because every time they come near me, I thought, shit.
You have to move on and you have to do this. Or I see.
So what I started doing was I started smoking in the office.
Right.
I just started, when I'd got smoking, and I started drinking in the cars and leaving a can of beer in the car on purpose to get caught.
Right.
To cause a situation so they'd say, who's done this? Yeah. And I would turn up with holes in my jeans. I wouldn't wear a suit.
And I bet you they never did anything. I knew they wouldn't. I knew it.
One day,
not causing any trouble, mate.
Superintendent come down. I got my feet on the desk. There's smoke everywhere. And he went, are you all right, John? I went, yeah. You? And as he left, I said to him, am I okay then? He went, yeah. So I said, I'll go home then. And I walked, they never said a word.
No, because you're not ruffling their feathers type of thing.
I couldn't believe it. But in the end, I made an allegation, and I actually said to my inspector, I need to talk to you now. So I said, right, this has been in me for a long time. Yeah. And bang, I let him have it. Yeah. So he basically ignored it.
Right.
So
I think he ignored it. I think it was the fear of his own job.
Yeah, I just think he just sat there and he was like, so I just went sick.
Yeah.
And then I made another allegation.
Yeah.
And I said, right, and it's a strange thing. I said I want to speak to their anti-corruption command.
Yeah.
And they got a PC on me. I said, no. It has to be a female senior detective.
Right.
And that was it.
Happening?
Well,
yeah.
Funny enough, have you seen that the drama Line of Duty?
Yeah.
That line exactly is used 4 years later after I thought, well,
oh, right.
And she said to me, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I said, you can't roll your trouser leg up.
Yeah.
Meaning
Yeah.
Masonic link, you know?
Yeah.
And she said, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
So I made this allegation of corruption, and they got everything. Warts and all, they got the lot. And
was she good? Was she good?
She was lovely.
Yeah,
she was lovely. But the bizarre thing is, as I was coming out, there was a guy waiting in the corridor, and it was one of the inspectors from the vice unit.
Right.
And it was it was a secure building, you know. This lot are in there. It's all security. No one really knows that they're there.
Shouldn't have known you were there.
What's he doing there?
Exactly.
He went, "You all right, John?" And he started then asking me questions about the senior officer that I just reported. He went, "Oh, do you ever have any dealings with so and so?" And I was like, "Why would you say that?"
Confidential between you and that girl.
And it really freaked me, you know. And I'm thinking, anyway. So I got out there, and then I started making contact with these other whistleblowers, and one was a guy called Lenny Harper, who had exposed and this is poignant to something that we mentioned a bit earlier, because I'd like to go on about the McCann case, if I may, at some point.
Course, yeah. Well done to this man.
Well done to him.
Hats off.
Well, Lenny Harper had exposed not just sex parties, but child murder at a children's home in Jersey called Hope de la Garenne.
Yeah.
And he was he's a Belfast guy, very stalwart, staunch detective, gone out there from the Met Police, gone out there, and he'd exposed it. And not only did he expose
Is this the one where they found the bodies?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen the
He took an anthropologist,
Yeah.
an archaeologist, and this sniffer dog. Well, I can't remember the name of this sniffer dog. And he said, we went there, he said, everyone was against me from the start. Everyone. He said, but my team were good. Brought a couple of lads from the mainland in there, and off we went.
Yeah.
And we went meticulously through this. And he said, these kids were mentioning about being tortured, about being shackled, put in a bath. So this is when we start getting into satanic stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, and this is more the accounts I've subsequently started
So
hearing.
there's a difference between being a paedophile and a satanic paedophile, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Oh yeah. I mean, they're both doing the devil's work.
Yeah.
But
that's a step up, isn't it, type of thing, yeah.
Without a doubt, it really is a step
Step
further
up
in
in
the
the wrong
hell.
direction,
But I do that all
yeah,
the time. I say, you know, actually it's that way, not.
Yeah.
And I can explain that. And also, Brian, what you'll see is those that are victim of child sexual abuse. They will be different to those that are victims of satanic ritual abuse.
The satanic rituals are a lot worse.
They've got a multiple personality thing.
Torture and everything, isn't it?
Yeah. And we can talk about that. I think that's interesting to say. So I was watching this guy, and I went and saw him. Went up to Scotland to see him, and he said, we went through every bit, and we found the handcuffs. We found still blood stains on there. The dog picked up the smell. A cadaver dog will only pick up the smell of a pig or a human.
Yes,
it's the same.
Same, yeah.
And said there was bone fragments. So the anthropologist said that is the bone of a junior school age child, so aged between 4 to 8.
Horrific.
And he said there was collagen in there, tested for collagen.
Yeah.
That is a child's bone.
Yeah.
Bagged it up, sealed it, as the police do, with a unique seal reference.
Yeah.
Off it goes to the laboratory in London. Anyway, the body part comes back in a different bag, with a different ratchet, but the same unique seal reference, which is impossible. It's like having the same passport number.
Yeah.
It don't happen. And the report is it's coconut shell.
Yeah, it's been swapped.
Yeah, it's coconut shell. And then...
But these are professional anthropologists, the dog's professional.
The dog was...
They can't get them wrong. Dogs can't be paid.
No,
can they?
It's irrefutable evidence, you know?
Yeah.
And the dog then ended up going to the FBI, and they used it.
Yeah.
But the evidence was then weakened years later by Kate McCann, who rubbished the dog, that rubbished their claims. It's
never got anything wrong, had it, that dog, ever? No. It got every single thing right.
And what this guy from Jersey said to me, he said, they're coming for you. He said, and what they're going to do, they're not going to investigate your claims, and you'll be an idiot to think they are. Everything will be turned on you. They'll have you for data protection violation and anything they can. So
Did you ever fear for your life?
Well, this is interesting because and it was highlighted. So all of a sudden, these allegations started coming in against me. So I started. I wouldn't say arrested. What they do is they sort of report you to be summoned. You know?
Right. Yeah. Did it make you stronger when you got these allegations? Did it make you want to fight more?
At that point, no. But there was a turning point where I did.
Right.
And I'll shortly get onto that. And there was something that really turned me around. Yeah. So all of a sudden they're saying, right, you're being investigated for data protection violations. Exactly what I was told by him and another woman detective. Yeah. Same thing happened. So it was one, and then there was another. And then they went through 10 years of my emails, and then the next thing they said, right, you're going to caution you. You're going to be not arrested, but it's like caution plus 3 and all that. And the allegation, supply of Class A drugs. I was like, what? I actually laughed, and I laughed, and I said, what are you on about? Class A drugs? But what it was, I had a friend who was a covert infiltrator. Right. And he would be sent all around the country, and he'd live as a tramp.
Yeah, and pretend to take the drugs.
Yeah, and he also used to have a little bottle of methadone with this pseudonym name of his. Yeah. And he literally used to urinate himself. He'd pee his pants. Yeah. And he always stunk of wheat and everything else.
He was undercover.
He was undercover. He was tattoos everywhere, and he'd go back with a little dog, and he was the best they had. He was brilliant. Yeah. But he had a nervous breakdown because they all end up multiple personalities. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah, they don't know who they are.
They don't.
They totally played that part that long to become that person.
And he ended up being beaten up all the time as well. People coming out of the pub start kicking him in the face. Yeah. So he went mad. Bless him. I don't mean that if you're watching. Yeah. But he went mad and ended up in France. He went off to France. Yeah. But he needed a friend. So he lost all his phones, all his contacts. Yeah. But all he remembered is Wedger. There are no other Wedgers anywhere, If I put in Jon Wedger at metpolice.co. whatever, I'm going to get through to John. So he'd gone into an internet cafe and said, please, can we meet? I want to come to England, let's have a drink. Yeah. So I said to him, of course. I said, I'll tell you what, you bring the tenant super, I'll bring the methadone, we'll have a cocktail. On a bench. Yeah. And then, so of course the next thing, and that's what it was. I didn't know at the time. I thought, so that supply method, and they went, you're going to get 15 years for this. And I did, I laughed. And they said, you need to sign this. So I said, that's okay, I will sign that. But I'll tell you what I'll do once I've signed it. And he went, what? I said, I'm going to stick this pen in your eye. And he went, you what? I said, yeah, I'm going to stick it in your eye. You've ruined my life, I'm going to ruin your eyesight. And so he wouldn't give me the pen. Yeah. And he just stared at me, him and his mate, and they walked out. Right. Next thing, of course, I've got threats to come assault. Yeah, yeah. And then it just went on and on and on. Then they stopped paying. Then he would turn a blind eye, wouldn't he? Yeah. And then another one. I said, if but I mean, it became a joke. It was just so stupid. Yeah. And then I weren't getting paid. And then I was on surveillance. They put me under surveillance, but the poor guy I was doing, I ended up doing, 50 years old. I'm back digging holes, foundations and block laying and things like that, for some lad who's in his 20s. And he got worried that he was, because I ended up in the newspaper, and he went, flipping hell, John, if you're on one, they'll do me as well for taking you on. So he backed off.
Did you ever feel that you got followed or?
To be honest, I knew I would be. Yeah. And I subsequently
found out I was. You looked on your outside, you sussed things straight away, don't you?
But I was so in a bad place, and I was drinking heavily that I didn't care in the end. I just wasn't bothered in the end. But so the threats that were made against me was you'll lose your home, your children, and your job. So my job was gone. I was looking at. There was 9 cases, criminal cases against me. Each one of them came with an employment issue as well. So that I was going to lose my job. Yeah. I was going to go to prison. There was so much weight against, I refused to be interviewed. I said, no, I'm not being
And all you had to do was say, I'll give up.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's all they wanted.
Off with everything,
And if
they were trying to break you,
they were. And if I'd have been interviewed by them, and they would have offered me a deal, the moment I took a deal, I was sacked. So they hadn't got me paying me my pension. Yeah. And then they would have said, look, we'll stop you going to prison, and I weren't negotiating with them. No. They were my enemy, and that was that.
Got to say, well done.
They were my enemy, and I had to keep telling myself, hang on, there's kids there getting hurt. Yeah. So every time anything happened, I said, you're protecting, and I'd say this seen a couple of things, and he's protecting paedophiles, and that's all I kept doing.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a process with the doctors within the police. I had to sort of deal with all that HR personnel side of it as well, which is a nightmare. But so
did you ever try to say you'd lost your mind and try to give you a psychological
say you're an alcoholic.
Yeah.
You know, so I will tell you something off camera because it's not really for public consumption. How you know, you've just got to use a little bit of intelligence sometimes with things. Do you know what I mean? But
that's what they do. A lot of people don't. They just say he's lost his mind, but section him type of thing.
Or they'll say we can do a deal.
Yeah.
Well, why would I deal with them? They've got nothing I want.
No.
There is nothing they have I want.
No.
You know, but obviously.
So this time now you went giving in no matter what.
No matter what, you know.
Yeah.
But then one of my children, I was working late one day. I was working with some Russians, and we were digging out a tree stump. And I went back to my car, and I got 50 missed calls. I'm like, what's happened? Ring me now, Dad, ring me. So I rang up one of my boys, and he's screaming at me, where are you? You've got to get to hospital in Cambridge, which is miles away, Cambridge. I'm in London. And he said, it's one of my older boys, he's in hospital. He said, Dad, he's going to die.
Right.
I went, what are you on about? He said, he's broken his neck. Wow. So he was involved in a terrible accident, and his spinal column was snapped. Like that, it was snapped 95%, it was hanging off like that.
Horrific.
On his neck. So I get to the hospital, and my oldest boy comes up and just whacks me.
For not being there,
for not being there.
Yeah.
And he's
probably being shocked,
and he's shouting at me, and anyway, the doctor comes and said, look, we managed to get the main surgeon in. We rushed him in. They sent a car. He's on his way, and he said, look, his rule is if within 40 minutes, if your son survives and it's done in 40 minutes, you'll keep him. He'll be alive. Yeah. But if it goes any more than 40 minutes, you've lost him. He's gone. And I can remember driving home.
Must have been unbelievable what you were thinking.
And he said, go home. I was covered in mud. I smelt of burning. We had a fire and all that. So I'm driving home. He said, go and have a wash and get back here. Yeah. So I drove home. And as I drove home, I was going through the lanes, and a shooting star went straight across my car, boom, like that.
Yeah.
And I think, wow, that's a name. And then I prayed. I said, just give me my boy back.
It's the God,
yeah. Anyway, I got home, and then the call came in. My son, he said, he's done the operation. Tyler's alive. Tyler, don't tell my name. He's alive. Anyway, and I went back to the hospital. Anyway, at the same time, there was still this persecute. They kept serving me with more papers.
Yeah.
The bank was now trying to get my home, and then I remember my boy was in intensive care, and something really strange happened, and he had a pipe in his mouth. They were ventilating his lungs, and they allowed it out for like half an hour, so his larynx wouldn't seal up.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And he could just about whisper. He could only move his right hand. That's the only movement he had, and his right toes. And the rest of him, he was paralysed. And I went up to see him, and his pipe's out, and the nurses there say he doesn't want to see you. I went, well, why? And he's like doing that with his hand. And so I went up to him, and he's whispering. He went, go, you got to go. And I went, why? He went, the witches. I went, what are you on about, the witches? He said, they've been waiting for you. They're flying around. They've been waiting for you.
Right.
I went, hey, where's? And he said he keeps talking about witches, waiting for my dad.
Yeah.
He said, they hate you, Dad. They hate you. They hate you for what you do. You got to go. And they're spitting on you. They're urinating on you. They hate you. And he said, they're there. He said, just go. So I went home. And they said, usually you got delirium when they're on drugs too long, but it lasts for about 2 hours. He'd been like that for 48 hours in a delirious state. And I thought his mind had gone. Anyway, I went home, and then I get a phone call, and I weren't drinking them because I was up down the hospital.
Yeah.
And I just thought I just need a drink. So I remember opening a can of beer, having a mouthful. The phone went, and it was the doctor in hospital. Can you come straight back?
Yeah.
We need you. So I was like, babe, no petrol. Literally, I was running on fumes. You know. Got there. There's 3 consultants, and they're waiting. They said, look, we've lost your son. Right. What do you mean? He was alright. He said that he's gone into full cardiac arrest. His lungs have stopped. His liver's packed down. He said 10 minutes he was out. We've been doing CPR for 7 minutes. We've broken his ribs. He's anyway he was in a mess. And he said, but we've got a heart murmur back. He's on 100% resus. His brain would have been without oxygen for 10 minutes. He's going to have brain damage. The damage to his body anyway. We're going to turn the machine off after 5 days. You've got 5 days. We're allowed that by law. They said, but they give you by law, you know. And they said, if you want to sign a disclaimer, you want to argue us, and I said, I just sign whatever. You've done everything. I had to accept it. What could I do? You know, they've done their best. And this is what changed me. And I stood by his side and I held his hand for 3 days. And when they had to come and clean him, or move him or move the body, and all the time, all I was doing was moving his legs and his arm, praying. And I remember sitting in the chapel. They had a chapel there. I'd go and get cups in. I just sat in the chapel, and I had it out with God. And I said, "You want me to help kids when I ain't doing it? I ain't. What man am I if I can't help my own son? My son's dying there. There's nothing I can do to help him. You take my son. You have everyone else's kids too, because I'm not doing it."
So it's totally frustration.
Hatred and that. I said, I'm not doing it. I am not doing it for no one else.
So you were broken.
Their own parents can deal with them. They're not my problem. I lose my kid, I lose everything. And I went back, and he opened his eyes. His eyes opened. And
power of Jesus Christ. It's real.
I know. Honest to God, his eyes opened, and I said, "Son, I love you." And he went, "I love you too." You could hear it.
Feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up.
And I said, I just want you to move. Wow. And he moved his left hand, he moved his right hand, he moved his legs.
That's unbelievable.
And I went, I'm going home. And I said, just don't. I went, no, I'm going home. And
you know what? Must have felt like, I'm sticking on now. I'm going on. I'm never going to give in.
Never give in. And the doctor called me back and said, now stay with him. I went, why? She said, and it was late to find out that sometimes when they die, they take their organs out of them as well. There's a lot of skullduggery goes on. Anyway, so I went back with him, and they classed it as a miraculous recovery. He weren't even meant to use his lungs. He walked out of hospital. He walked. And he's gone on to get, he couldn't get married because of COVID. He's gone on to get, near enough, I'd say married for the sake of an argument, buy a house and have a child.
That's fantastic. Unbelievable.
Unreal.
Well done.
But when I come home from him being like that, I came home and the police were there waiting for me, and they said, you're under arrest for child neglect.
Right.
Because I've been there for 3 days.
Oh, right.
They'd found out. I thought someone had told them, but they obviously found out through surveillance and all that. So my not the lad here, but younger one than him, he's old enough now, he's about 15 then, said he's been home alone. You've left a 15-year-old home alone. With my 26-year-old. With my 26-year-old.
Just any excuse, isn't it?
Yeah, and they said, look, we're going to caution you. And I just said to this bloke,
shame on them, close shame. When after you went through that, you think your son's gone for good.
However, it didn't get proceeded with that, And one of the senior couple, he saw and I said, please listen to me. And he turned around and he gave me a big hug, actually. I said, look, I'll do what I can do. But after that, Brian, it changed me. And I thought, you know what, the gloves are off now. You were prepared to do that at the lowest point. You didn't show any dignity, any compassion, no love for humanity. That's what you wanted to do, to shut me up, because I knew about politicians, judges, senior officers that were involved in having sex with children. And do you know what? This is war now.
Of course.
And then what happened then was, I remember watching the telly, and there was the alternate media just started coming out, and they started having these. Sky Telly had a channel that was set up for alternate media, and there was a thing called Edge TV had come out, and it was, I think, channel 232 on Sky, and I was watching it, and there was this guy, he was in Trafalgar Square, and he's standing there, and he's a proper Cockney, and he looked like a tasty lad, but it was an older boy, and he's standing there, and he's going, and the Queen knows about paedophilia, and everything about paedophilia, they've covered up, and they abused us, we were all in care, and they raped us and abused us, and he's screaming, and he's a proper Londoner, and I think, God, I like him. I really like him. And it was Bill Maloney. Right. From Pymash. So me and him, I got in touch with Bill, and we just started campaigning together. And of course, Bill was heavily involved with the organised criminals from South East London, very well. And some of them said to him, look, you teamed up with an ex-copper, and he went, yeah, but he's dealing with a child abuse, so we ain't got a problem with that, Bill.
That's why
we ain't got a problem with that.
I would never speak to a copper in my life, only if it was for children or somebody being killed, like a kid or something like that. And what you're doing, I think, is fantastic.
Well,
You've got, if you don't speak, what you've done now, you've come full circle. People believe in you, I believe in you. Other people believe in you, the church believe in you. You're a Christian like us, and we really believe in you. I think what you're doing is fantastic. Absolutely amazing story. I think it's brilliant.
And if you was to meet anyone that got a calling, it's me.
Yeah.
This is in every sinew of my body. It's in every cell pumping around me.
Yeah.
And every time I want to give up, and I do want to give up so many times, and and all of a sudden I do it.
Yeah.
A phone call will go, and someone says, "John, can you help me?"
Well, if you feel like giving up, phone me, because I'll make
keep
going. And if anyone's following you, phone me.
well, that's what I do. I mean, Chris Lambriano, and someone said to
all
him,
guys like that, we're all tough guys, we've been in that game, but we don't like to see kids children save our children, like you say.
Well, someone said to Chris Lambriano once, he said, "Oh yeah, you're talking to Copper." He went, "Yeah, I do. Every week I ring him up when I pray with him." And he does.
Hats off to him, he's a good man, and he's a really good man. And the criminal fraternity, the lads like myself who've done wrong in the past and we're Christian now, we've turned our life on, we'll help you all day long. But we want to help you. I'd have helped you even then days, because it's children. How can you abuse children? It's disgusting.
And that's what it was. I weren't interested in anything else. I didn't, and even more so now. But my life has totally changed. And of course, then I thought, what do I do? How do I then move this forward? Because the media didn't want to come near me because they'd been told not to. And this is something I want to talk about, the intelligence services as well. And I thought, well, I've got these skills. They use me as a specialist interviewer. What they used to do, because I was a good communicator, they used to try and send me into the prisons to get information. And I went Barlinnie, I've been in Greenwich prison, the Scottish system, and through the UK, everywhere. And I was very good at interviewing kids and all that. So I thought, well, I'll use my phone. Someone trained me. There's Breeze Media. There's a media company. Anna runs it. Said, look, I'll show you. Use your phone and go out and interview. So what I did was I went out and I started interviewing victims and survivors of abuse.
That's brilliant.
And I said, I'll give you, the voice. Yeah. And then I found a lot of them have been in the prison system. Yes. And then that tied into them very early years when that lad said to me. Yeah. And then
all of us. Yeah.
And then what I started seeing was the system. All it did was make money out of it, Brian. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I've been saying that for years.
It's unbelievable.
That's like I said, they should legalise heroin, because if they legalise it, the Taliban won't make no money. The criminals on the streets can't sell it. People can't overdose. People can be taken and given it administrated. It'd be a lot cheaper. Then the prison service would have a lot more room. The kids would get the food. It's just exponentially the best idea I think you can do. But they won't do it, like you said, because they're making money out of it.
And what is heroin? It's a painkiller.
Exactly.
And there's people in pain, and pain is in the heart as well,
Yes.
And so they're taking a painkiller, an analgesic, to knock themselves out. And I get that. Yeah. I've not done heroin.
To forget what's happened to being raped and abused, and then sadly they sell their bodies because they need the money for the drug that they're on. So nobody should throw stones at anyone. Who hasn't sinned, cast the first stone, and don't throw stones if you live in a greenhouse.
I know. And the other thing with it, Brian, it's not that they're taking heroin. Yeah. Because heroin, it comes in these bales, as you may know, and it compressed into these blocks, kilo piece, whatever. Yeah. And it's 96% purity. Yeah. Right. So you might need a little bit of that, and you probably would get high, but won't get a little. Yeah. They're taking 5%
off the streets.
Purity.
What can kill them because it's
full
cooked to death.
Crap.
Yeah.
Injecting it into the
and destroying the bodies. Yeah.
But also
I was just going to say, sorry.
That's right.
A lot of people on these painkillers, gabapentin off the doctors, prescribed drugs off doctors. Yeah. They're just as bad as the heroin. They can't get off them. They're opiates. Gabapentin, Subutex,
fentanyl.
Yeah, horrible.
And also antidepressants. Yes. I mean, they've been proven not to work.
Millions are on it. Millions.
But the other thing is, we look at our prison system. I said this to someone. Yeah. You've got in our prison system a 75% recidivism rate, 75% reoffending rate.
Of course.
So I said to a person, well, I'm going to give you an analogy. I want an extension bill, right? Right, you say to me, I've got a guy, we'll do your extension for you. Yeah. Right, he's sponsored by the government. Yes. It's going to cost you £450 an hour, which is what they charge, barristers charge the government. Yeah. Right, and bear in mind, you then say to me, 75 to 8% of everything he builds falls down immediately.
They just laugh at you.
But we've got to accept that same narrative when it comes to the prison. Yeah. Whereas when you take Scandinavia, You know, they've got a 75% non-offending and recovery rate.
And these places like Holland have legalised things like having the drug setting drugs, and they don't have the offending what they do.
But as well as that, therapy.
Yeah,
therapy.
That's exactly what you need. Yeah, and you go into these jails, John. I've been in jail, and what happens is, you go to jail and you get to learn how to burgle. You learn how to pitch cars. You learn. It's like you go to school to be a criminal when you go to jail. So a lot of people are just coming back out, and once you come out, you can't get a job because you have a criminal record. You can have an IQ through the roof like Albert Einstein. You're not getting a job because you have a criminal record. So they should be giving jobs. I was thinking of something like, if you were given 5 years. Instead of doing the two, say they do the 2.5, and you have to do 2.5 in licence, give them maybe a year to do. If they do a course in jail, pass the course, give them a job to go to. But if they break it, they have to go back to jail. Instead of keeping them in jail all this time, and then when they come out, they've got the crime.
The other thing they got is this IPP system.
It's
which
crazy.
Is another scandal. You know, it was. We got one lady in moment was doing our camera work. He's now serving an IPP. He's been in there a year. He's not even gone before a parole board yet.
No.
And he said they're just locking us up doing nothing, rotting away. And again, these are kids with all that energy. They're broken. Something's put them in there.
Of course it is.
You know, and
all criminals aren't bad.
No.
No, it's like anything. So, but the thing is, like you said, helping them with therapy is more important than just sticking them in the jail.
Yeah, of course it is.
They're 23 hours a day with this COVID virus, sat in a cell.
Well, with the COVID thing, and we've had the warmest summer, relentless heat. Imagine being stuck in there.
Bad enough sitting in your house, isn't it? So being that's just phenomenal.
I mean, but the other thing with it is you know, I started getting a lot of help from what would be classed as the criminal classes. You know, Chris was phenomenal. Put me in touch with another guy called Tony. Put me in touch with Terry. You know, and we've all been working together to try and get the government to listen. Not once has a police approached me and said, "John, come on, what do we put right here?" You know what? Not once.
Happen. The thing is, you know, you just stand divided, you fall. The more people that get on board, the more people listen to John, save our children, the more people is going to help, and they've got to listen. They can't fall on deaf ears, kind of. We've got to stand up, John, like you said.
You know, and that's all it takes. And someone said something to me, right? A whistleblower is very similar to a victim and survivor. Now, a victim and survivor of abuse. Let me tell you something. When you stand up, one thing happens. You stand alone. No one stands with you. And this guy said to me, take a parachutist. They're trained to land with both legs down like that. If you land on one leg, you break it. You land on 2 legs apart, you break them. Together, that's a strength of 3. It's a very powerful ratio. And he said, you must stand together. Unfortunately, there's a lot of mental health within the survivor community. I mean, I get accused of working for MI5 and doing this. I mean, and one of the reasons attacks started coming on with me was the inception really came when someone come to me and told me about their abuse, and it was what is termed SRA, satanic ritual abuse.
Which is the worst.
So I started speaking out against satanic ritual abuse, and that's when the attacks really come.
Right.
Now, when you take, if there is a jigsaw of crime or whatever, you can put together
4 corners.
You start, you know, paedophilia starts filling in a lot of gaps. Now, a lot of what they call dishonest crime is a reserve of the working and the lower classes. It tends to come from the lower end of the market, as it were, socially, and I don't mean to denigrate anyone. You know,
in deprivation.
Deprivation and everything else. You know, low education. I mean, I think in the category C prisons, the under 22s have got an illiteracy rate of nearly 80% illiteracy rate, which is appalling. You know, in this UK, you know, kids haven't been parenting properly, or there's been failings everywhere, and all along people have made a lot of money out of it. You know, so you start looking at that, and then you start realising, why do certain people know certain people? They're from different classes. Well, paedophilia, it doesn't know any boundaries. No social class, no economic boundaries, no religious boundaries. You know, and also gender. There's a lot of women.
They just want the children done, no matter what colour, no matter what age, whether like the young kids done mainly, but they just want the children, no matter what colour they are, no matter where they come from. They're not bothered, are they?
They're not worried. And you sit there and think, why? What is it about a kid that they want?
You can't contemplate it, can you? Just can't fathom out.
Well, we had a lady offer her services to us, and her name's Corinne, and she's such a tremendous individual. She's on the FBI's top 10 profile list. She's the only one that will deal with child murderers. She'll sit down with them. you know, and she knows their
try and
minds
get to
into
the
that.
bottom of it.
Yeah,
I understand that.
and it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And what she says, it's quite interesting. I'll sort of draw it out if I may. She said a human being's made out of 3 balls, as it were. Right. And you know, so you've got the intel on the top. Now hold this up for the camera, and you've got your emotional, and then you've got like the sexual down there, right, as it were. Let's just hold it up for them. So you've got like the 3 balls. She said like a bit like a snowman.
Yeah.
You know. So she said, if you try and outwit a paedophile on an intellectual level, which a lot of coppers do, they think they're pseudo intellectuals. They think they're clever.
Right.
You know. She said you're going to lose because they are highly deviant, highly intelligent.
Right.
And I think Terry alludes to that in his book Living with a Beast. He goes on about, you know, so we'll give that a good shout.
Yeah.
But he said, and everything, you know, well, on the sexual level, they would have been awakened very early on, you know, sexually, so very sexualised.
Right.
And the lower chakra stuff. So
you think they know what they want at a very early age? What they
I just
become a paedophile.
Yeah, well, I just think that, you know, the damage gets done and it's never put right. She said, but however, the emotional, that will be your entry age. She said that's what you've got to look at. Right. At what point in their life were they hurt? And that tends to be the entry age. So it could be 7, it could be 8, it could be younger than that. So emotionally, that's when then their clock would have stopped. Right. And this intel would the intelligence would have compensated highly for it. So she said,
that's why they're intelligent then.
Yeah. She said, don't outwit them because they'll win. Yeah. But emotionally, you will always get to them.
A bit like a narcissist, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly what it is. It's narcissism. Yeah. And that's what she said, because a narcissist looks after themselves.
Yeah, a narcissist thinks he's a king or a queen or whatever the thing, and whatever you do, they're fighting. They think they're fighting for their lives. Yeah. And all it is
pure selfishness. Over a football
team. Yeah. They have to be right.
Yeah. It's pure selfishness, and it's all about them. Narcissism. Yeah. And narcissism, children are naturally narcissistic because it's like the chirping birds. Me, because they've got to survive.
Yeah, and some people who are narcissists get older, like children still, that's why they call them after like children, the narcissistic fuel. They have to keep going on to get it done, they want to argue, they want to be,
And there's 2 ways to turn a narcissistic child into a psychopath.
Right.
Either no love or too much love.
Right.
So you'll get it, but you know, the overprotectiveness, you will enhance a narcissistic tendency. Yeah. Or you crush them and you belittle them and you destroy them, and you'll create a psychopath. Yeah. And you will. And once that's happened, boom, you know, that's it, gone. You know, and it's just shocking crime. So I started looking into the satanic stuff purely because so many people started coming forward. Yeah. And then I realised that this is a very, very dark and dangerous world. So with that jigsaw puzzle, all of a sudden I started understanding why I was threatened. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Yeah. And I started thinking, I now know who and what I'm dealing with. Right. And then the survivors.
So was the first time you realised?
Yeah. It was like that eureka moment.
Woof. Yeah.
Oh God, I've got this now.
Epiphany.
Yeah. And there's a lot of rewards. And this satanic ritual abuse is ancient, Brian. It goes back. Yeah. This predates Christianity. Yeah. You know, and the Bible's warned us about this. Yeah. You know, it's our worship. They worship Moloch. They worship Lucifer. They worship Satan. And it's about the destruction of the child, because Jesus loved the child, so they've got to destroy the child, and everything they do is about child destruction.
Destroy the child, they turn these type of people, paedophiles and psychopaths and lunatics, and then they're going to destroy other people, don't they? And
of course, this is the ultimate organised criminality.
It's the devil.
It is ultimate. And what I do, if we can get a little rag in a minute, is there a little bit of that cleaning cloth or a rag? And I'll clean this, and I want to go through how look, you're thinking one step ahead of me.
There we are.
Yeah.
My wife's always
I know that. Straight on it. Right, I'll just try and get as much as and what I want to say, right, years ago there was a thing called the RAINS list got produced, Brian, and it's RAINS. It's an acronym. Ritual Abuse Information Network Support.
This is a proper thing, yes.
Proper document that come out. Yeah. It's about 15 pages.
Does it come from, please?
Yeah. No, this came from a lead psychoanalyst, psychologist and psychiatrist. Right. The Maudsley Hospital, which is the lead hospital for mental health in London. Right. Is next to King's College Hospital in South London. And she started...
So it's a proper doctor.
She's a doctor. She's an expert in her field. Yeah. And she started looking at people coming with multiple personalities that have been sexually abused. Right. And she realised that there was a common denominator. That why did they have this split personality?
Yeah.
You know, hundreds sometimes. You know.
Yeah.
Why did they do this? Why have they keep saying the same things? What they kept saying was ritualistic abuse.
Right.
You know, from very early age, they are taken, and these are the things that these Satanists make them do. They take their version of Holy Communion, which is made out of feces, urine, menstrual blood, you know, and ejaculate and stuff like that. Then they will make this and they'll give them that. Sodomy in children, so anal rape in children, gang rape on children, bloodletting on babies, so babies are sacrificed.
Is that to drink the blood? Or
Drink the blood, and it's to drink the blood. There's been many books, there's been many documentaries on this.
Yes.
There's one called Dances with the Devil by Audrey Harper. She was a former street prostitute. Just a bit before I started working in that scene. Yeah. And so much what she says crosses over with so much.
Yeah. You know. So it all fits, doesn't it?
All fits together. But also what started happening was people and places were mentioned. Right. So he was in a New Forest in the south of England. Certain locations kept being mentioned.
So the same names in the same places kept coming up when you were getting interviewed.
So she would only put a name on there if 2 or more, so 3 people named it, right? Yeah. So she was confident then legally that this name can then be disclosed.
Yeah.
And I implore anyone, put RAINS list, RAINS, satanic list, it will come up. There's politicians. There's my old boss from when I was on the vice unit. Was on there. Yeah. He's in there, right? That might explain quite a bit. There's 2 chief constables from Hampshire, you know, and a chief constable and assistant chief constable from Hampshire police. There's doctors, there's actors, you know, and of course people like Jimmy Savile are mentioned on it, Ted Heath. And of course, we then had our head of our premier, you know, our prime minister is on there. Right. So all these names are on there. Now I started then doing more and more looking into this. So. And of course, the same politicians would be mentioned to me. So people were coming forward, and the same locations were coming up, time and time again. Now we got 643 politicians. Why do we keep hearing the same 5 coming up? Then there's government inquiries that have occurred post Jimmy Savile thing. You know, we heard about Elm Guest House.
We've seen Jimmy Savile doing documentaries where he's gone into hospitals and the nurses have told and they've been sacked. So he had that much power. He had Prince Charles and Diana, Margaret Thatcher, her husband Dennis Thatcher behind him. He was just fireproof, wasn't he? Because MI5 would step in and tell the police they don't do the jobs. You know that better than me.
Well, this is interesting, Brian, because journalists, the media agencies that started speaking out, they started getting served things called D notices. And they're like, people have heard of a D notice, like, oh, we had a D notice served on the Daily Mirror or the Daily whatever, you know. But what actually is a D notice? A D notice is a defence notice. Right. It was a tool by the military intelligence services. So we've got the civilian police, and then we've got the military. They're not interchangeable. We don't have the military police our streets. They're not allowed by our constitution. They're not allowed to be there. They can't go doing it. So what the hell are the military intelligence services doing? Serving defence notices on journalists who are exposing people raping children. And then you realise, well, what are the military intelligence for? They're there to protect the economic stability of the country, the health stability of the country, the financial stability. So anyone who starts interfering with that, the military, they come in.
So why would you be doing this?
So they come in. You think, well, what is there? What politically could destabilise this? Well, if you've got a politician who's raping a kid, but also is a Satanist, well, you know, and then it makes you think about spies. Were these spies really selling military secrets, or were they actually selling secrets about politicians raping kids? And I think the latter is more the truth. Do you know what I mean? And then when we look at who was the head, you know, I mean, this came in the First World War, but subsequently we had the head of MI6, I think Sir Peter Heyman, was a paedophile. So he's head of MI6.
So he's the second powerfulest. MI6 the powerfulest. Sorry. What we can get in the country higher than any military or anything. Like James Bond,
James Bond, you know, overseas military intelligence, the head of it is a paedophile.
Licensed to be a paedophile.
And then licensed to fiddle.
It's horrific, isn't it, when you think of it. People think we've lost our minds here, some of them out there. We tell the truth.
Well, I mean, and when you start then looking, and every Prime Minister and every politician has a political advisor.
Yeah.
And we look at the last 5 Prime Ministers we've had, their political advisors have been involved in paedophilia.
Yeah.
One of them, I think his name was Patrick Rock, he might have been Tony Blair's, or he might have been Cameron's political advisor, I'm not sure which one, but he was put in charge of internet security. He was found with a load of child porn images on his computer. Yeah. I mean,
nothing happens to them, does it?
No,
nothing happens to them.
No.
It's all pushed under the carpet. I mean, Johnny Rotten on sound like the Sex Pistols.
Yeah,
he said
spoke out, didn't he?
He spoke out. He
Yeah.
was banned off the telly for years, wasn't he, because of it?
Shocking.
You know.
So this is how all of a sudden we got this political world is having influence now over the police. And then if we look at, there's one politician, and again I won't name him, but he was the youngest ever promoted Home Secretary, and he's been investigated numerous times for involvement with sex with young children.
Yeah.
So Home Secretary is in charge of crime and disorder. You know, it's they own the prisons, they own the police, everything. They're in charge of everything.
It's funny how they only get caught out when they die.
Yeah, posthumous.
You know,
yeah.
They only get caught.
Yeah, guilty until proved guilty until dead or something like that.
Jimmy Savile can't be taken off because once you give him that stare, no matter what he's done, it's on there. So.
But everyone knew about it.
Yeah, of course they did.
But if anyone spoke out,
and all them spoke out and things like that, and
they were rubbish.
Yeah.
But the entertainment industry, we're seeing it being exposed.
It's all
what
about
it is.
money, wasn't it? Because he was making that much money with these marathons and all of this stuff. It's all about money in it. It's all it is. Yeah.
What I want to come on to is, again, there were so many gaps, but these gaps are being filled. And with the SRA thing, it's getting people to, are we rolling? Yeah. It's getting people to understand it, because it's still classed as a myth.
Of course.
But it isn't.
No, it isn't.
I mean, we've got now researchers getting freedom of information requests from all police forces around the country. I think there's 40 of them. We're getting some horrific results coming back, which have never been published.
Yeah.
But a woman got in touch with me. She's a victim of satanic ritual abuse. A lot of them have what's called DID. So what they do is they don't just rape the children. Right. I mean, they're perverts and they like having sex with children, okay? But that's not the end of it. The children have many uses, so they are used for coercive control, so they are used to be put out to other clients for blackmail value.
Right.
But also, they like to torture the children. They get that pleasure in this.
Somewhere that they kill them and then bring them back to life, is that true?
Yeah, they take them to the point of death and then they revive them. And there was a famous politician, again I can't name him, that was his thing, to sodomise a young boy and strangle him, and then but he became an expert in mouth to mouth because he knew how to bring a boy back. And these are people that are claiming peerages.
And these are people who are supposed to be looking after us.
You're looking after us and telling us what to do. Yeah. And they're the ones that are sending people away for non-payment of council tax.
Yeah, or being or you've been speeding, you're a criminal, or whatever, somebody's stealing a loaf of bread because they're hungry, going to jail, and these people are supposed to be running the country and running up us are just turning a blind eye to what's going on and being paedophiles themselves.
It's just appalling, and you're sitting there thinking, well, why is no one talking out? Well, because they're in on it.
Of course.
You know, but also the children are used to the blackmail, but they have to make sure the kid never speaks out. So they're tortured. And what happens when you torture someone? You shatter their mind, they break them.
Yeah, you break them,
But they'll drown them. So drowning's a big thing. Then revive them. They'll electrocute them.
Like waterboarding type of thing.
Or they will literally drown them in the bath.
Right.
They'll electrocute them. They will beat them. They will whip them. They will gang rape them. And then what happens to a child? That mind has to then hide.
Fracture won't it? Yeah.
So they'll have.
Is that when they come on to split personalities?
Split personalities,
They'll pretend to be Tommy instead of Jack. Yeah. Because Tommy's never been hurt and Jack has been hurt. Yeah.
But it gets more childish than that.
Yeah.
Because there was one woman, she said one of her personalities was called Panda. And I'm like, oh, Panda. Well, it turns out Panda, when she would be beaten, all she ever wanted to save her was like a doorman, a big guy in a black and white suit. So because he would stand her in black and white. So whenever she was beaten, Panda would come forward and protect her. You know, and there's another one that she's got like Sparky, because they would electrocute her, but then Sparky would come and he'd deal with electricity. Right. But when you start blending their personality,
childlike
things, because it's childish,
yeah, and they've still got that when they're older,
and they're all programmed that if they speak out, you die. So there'll be one bit in it that as soon as they speak out, suicide comes in.
Right.
So they'll get suicidal.
So it's like triggering it off in the end.
You know, and I'm hearing story after story. But one of the things also, a groomed child is a valuable commodity.
Right.
So a groomed child will survive.
Yeah.
Because they're already sexualised.
Do you think groomed childs become paedophiles as well, or not?
No. Right. I would say most paedophiles have been abused.
Yeah.
But most people haven't been abused, don't become paedophiles. There's a greater propensity in that community.
Yeah.
I think it's 1 in 10 or something.
Yeah.
You know, there has been research in it, but it's highly inaccurate to say those that have been
Would you
abused become abusers.
what's the differences in the satanic one? Are they?
All satanic, all Satanists have been abused. Is
Right.
what was said to me. They've all come from abused backgrounds, you know. And but I mean,
what was the terminology? What they think? What did they get out of it when they've been abused? Do they try to get back? Is it just like, say, you see what your mum does and your dad does, and my dad's a builder, I'll be a builder.
But there'll be bonuses for it, so you'll be progressed. So a policeman will get, and I want to explain the hierarchy in a minute, and there'll be financial incentive. You know, they will benefit. They will get contracts. They will this and all that. You know, I mean, in my team, most of my team have come from abused backgrounds.
Right.
There is more and more of them joining now that have come from satanically, ritually abused backgrounds. And some
are helping you.
Some have got multiple personalities. One girl, she's got about 100 personalities, and it's just horrible. It's sad, what they've done. I mean, and
they've been normal people have been driven to this.
It's awful. And when they tell you, it does. It breaks your heart, and you see what they've done to them. But they want it to stop.
I can see it where you tell them. I can see it really affected.
They want it to stop, and then
it's affected me.
But imagine doing that. I mean, someone said, and you said to me earlier, "Have I not been frightened or feared for my life?" Well, one of the politicians, he was the Minister for Policing and Crime.
Right.
And when it all started going crazy for me, he stood up in Parliament with the Home Secretary and the Home Secretary's office team, and turned around, and it was started talking about the ritual abuse and all that. And he said, "This is real. We've all known about this."
So this is in Parliament.
Yeah, in Parliament. So we've known about this, and he said, "Had I not stood by him, Jon Wedger wouldn't be here now."
Oh wow.
And I went, well, what do you mean by that? He said, "You know exactly what I mean."
That's brilliant.
I said, "Well, they'd done it." He said, "You'd have been gone, man. You'd have been gone."
So in other words, he saved you from
yeah.
They would have wiped you out,
gone.
Probably injected you or something.
Whatever, run you over, whatever.
Gas
whatever they
in your
do,
house or whatever.
Whatever they do, and they've got the capabilities to do it, And I said to him, "Who do they use?" And he went, "A lot of ex-military guys will be used, but it will be purely business." And funny enough, a guy come to see me, and he'd served in, I think, the Royal Green Jackets, and he'd gone on to go on to one of the specialist units, and he ended up doing private contracting, but he would do government contracts as well. He said, "I've done one in Ireland. I'll never do one in the UK. There are some people that will, but on the whole I won't." He said, "I've done them in Hong Kong."
And what's this for? Like killing
people, yeah.
And then contracted, put them out the way because they're saying something that somebody doesn't want to be said.
And he said they'd get a Belgium, a French, or an East European guy would be brought over, and I said, well, and funny enough, I spoke to a girl that was in MI6, and she said, I would sometimes help working out the contracts of people that they were due to contracts.
Oh.
So she said,
and
she's a whistleblower for MI6, you know.
Wow.
And I said, well, what would you do? And he said, well, you get like a little short arm, little side arm, with a bottle of water. You just cut it so it fits in the water. And he said, and I'll walk past you making out and drinking, and bang, and fire through the water, and it will be a silencer.
Yeah.
It acts as a silencer.
Wow.
Bang. And you'll just
and
see
by the time
you'll just go down.
He's heart attack or something. He's gone.
He said, just go straight by her, bang, and that'd be gone. Get on the motorbike and gone. He said, be easy as that, So he'd say that, but it does go right to the heart of government.
Yeah.
And when I was threatened with, no idea who you're dealing with, well, I know now.
But only the government can change the law.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. So we have to be the voice. We are the voice of the government, so we have to get up there and get them to change what's going on. But if we don't stand up, they're not going to do it.
Brian, the devil loves to silence.
Of course he would.
And I just say to people, speak out. Now, this isn't all about satanic ritual abuse. No. We are bringing all the survivor groups together. We want them all to come forward.
Fantastic.
And everyone work together. Yeah. What I want to do is just show you the hierarchy of how these people work, so we've got a full overview.
Yeah, so we know.
And that's how, I mean, I never knew my life. A bit like, your journey through life. You never knew you'd end up sat here.
No, somebody told me you'd be sitting talking to a policeman who worked 30 years. I think you're having a joke, aren't you?
But
no, it's for the cause what you do.
yeah.
Say about children.
Yeah.
It's fantastic what you're doing. I commend you, like you say. You should be given the medal for what you're doing, mate. And I think you're doing fantastic. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, what I'll do, Brian, I'm just going to use this bit, right? So that's not there, but we're going to use these, right? This is like the pyramid of power. So this is the woman said to me, you need to take this down.
Yeah.
This has been corroborated and verified by survivors. And she said, before it's too late, the world needs to know how the satanic thing works. She said, it's ancient. Yeah. It's ancient ritual. This
goes back thousands
of years. Babylonian, Sumerian.
Before Jesus
before Jesus was even there. And it's what Jesus warned us about.
That's why Jesus has come to warn us,
He's had enough of it. Yeah. So he said, right at the bottom, you've got what's known as spotters.
Right.
Right, so these spotters, right, here we go, it's shown right at the bottom, spotters. Here we go, right. So these spotters, what they do is, this girl was a spotter. She said, I would be taken, she said Elm Guest House, which was something that come out in the press a little while about children's home down in South West London where MPs were going for sex with children.
Right.
She said, so a boy or a girl would be brought in, there would be a customer there, maybe high up, maybe someone from abroad, someone wealthy, or maybe a politician.
Yeah.
She said, and there'd be a group of us, we've all been abused, but we're also spotters. So we will be put out in windows opposite, in windows in a building, in the garden.
Like they do in Holland and Germany, the red light district.
Yeah, but also like they might do in like the favelas of Brazil when they have the little lads whistling when the police come in and.
Right. Oh, I see. Yeah.
So they would be put out there, the spotters, and their job would be to keep an eye out.
To go alert to whoever's coming. Yeah.
But also their job is to identify other victims.
Yeah.
Right. So they know other kids that have come from bad backgrounds or vulnerable families.
So they can be used as
and they would then report to this next group. Right, this next group are called the Lookers. Now the Lookers, I'm going to show that to camera. Now the Lookers, they do the more research. They would then proactively go out and they would find victims based on intelligence from the spotters. They would then go to whatever so it could be it doesn't necessarily have to be the lower working class communities where there is a lot more dysfunctionality, overt dysfunctionality. The middle class, there's a lot of swinging going on and wife swapping that was synonymous, wasn't it, years ago with this community.
That's right.
And of course that causes a sexual liberalisation and then of course you're going to get the perverts winkle their way in. I've spoken to the son of a famous lord. And his dad, his dad was raping him and raping others and having orgies in the house. So it's going on. Yeah. So they're going to identify a weakness because what they've got to do, those at the top need feeding.
So these at the bottom are looking for sharks, predators
all the time. Yeah. They are going up and down.
A day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, that is their job to identify
like sharks. Yeah.
Right, and then after that, now this is going to interest people. After that, they make way to this next group and they're called the fixers, right? So the fixers then have access to intelligence and they are able to procure the children. So that could be an abduction, and we do see abductions go on with children. We saw it with Roy Whiten who abducted Sarah Payne, where Ian Huntley, it does. Yeah. And it makes you wonder whether or not there's more to this child abduction than just. So a groomed kid is better. Because a groomed kid an abducted kid dies, and that's that.
Oh, is that right?
Once they're abducted, that's it. They're gone. So that's what I was told. Fixers are in two groups, 1, 2, and 3, according to their level. The upper class fixers, middle class, they will procure the children, so they can do it via the social services or anywhere, putting in the care in the kids' home.
And they know this is they're never coming back. These fixers,
very connected people. And who was told to me as being a high level fixer? A man called James Saville, right? And what was his program called? Jim will fix it.
Jim will fix it. It was taking the P out of it.
Of course it was.
And he was sitting there deliberately.
Jim will fix it. He was. They're procurers, right? So all of a sudden, from identifying, looking out, helping, intelligence and all that, they've now procuring the children, and they will make sure.
Because they would go and get kids, wouldn't they, and take 6 or 7 out of these Rolls Royce and things, and they'd go.
And then they're taken back again.
Yeah.
And of course, kids are drugged as well. They don't know what's gone on. It's unbelievable what's gone on, you know, and some are frightened. And I mean, one girl said she was taken to a party, so 6 years old. She's already been abused at home. Her mother's very middle class. She said, I go there, this man gives me a drink, and I think she's in her 50s now. So it was Jimmy Savile. He gave me a drink of champagne in an old sort of thing. So there was a little boy called Matthew next to me who'd come from a kid's home, and we were talking together, and they gave me this drink, and she said, next thing she said, I wake up, we're in this like a shed area outside, and Matthew's next to me and he's dead. He's dead. And Jimmy Savile brought Matthew in. You know, so you know, and the people that, it's not just Jimmy Savile. Look who protected him. Right. And then of course from here we move to another level now, right? And we move to this level, and this shows a hierarchy. It's like how the mafia work, you know. The cleaners, right? The cleaners. Now they don't just clean up the scene. They will forensically clean up the scene.
Get rid of the bodies and everything.
They will get rid of the bodies, but they will also, right now, bear in mind what it said to me. People were saying that they've been taken to police stations, and this has occurred. I've heard 2 accounts from police accommodation buildings. I've heard it from British Legion buildings, from pubs, from Salvation Army building, military bases. You know, we hear it all the time. Right, so the cleaner is the organiser, right? So the cleaner then needs to know that if, say, they're holding it in a working man's club, a ritual, where kids, not just to rape children, we're talking now about ritualistic abuse,
so killing them as well. Right?
They've got to make sure that the central station alarm doesn't go off. They've got to make sure that residents' parking isn't violated, so people not on the building.
You're saying, like military, isn't it?
Everything. They are so
strategic.
But the other thing is that there is no DNA left behind, or DNA is left behind. So I'm here now and I blow my nose on that, and I'm like, that's my DNA. That can be put on a crime scene. I am now on a crime scene. That could be taken. You know.
Then go into your dustbin.
They can.
Something.
I mean, you could even, you know, if you was a burglar, watch someone throw a fag down. You know, go and pick up with tweezers. You could leave that.
Take it outside somebody's house who's been killed or whatever, and they get the blame.
An apple. A bitten apple. It can be pushed through a letterbox. You can open a letterbox and chuck it in there. Someone's on the scene then. So, you know, so not only can they get rid of DNA, you know, they can produce it. You know. And that's that. So the cleaners are very. And what I said,
these must be really intelligent.
And that they have got police officers working in there. Again,
so they've got backup, haven't they?
They have got. They've got their little gang. And let's not saying everyone is. This is an elite club here. I mean, we're going about masonry. This is masonry and some. You know, this is just taking this to such an extreme level.
Level.
Oh yeah, unbelievable. But they'd say that these cleaners will be regional, so they'll have one for the northeast, one for the south.
They have one in every area.
Yeah, they said they're split. It's into 5 areas, and they'll be called in, and they will coordinate, make sure it all goes.
So they all do they only use one, or sometimes do they use a couple at a time?
Well, they go. Depends on how big the thing is.
The ritual is.
Right. So what then? I was told. Again, we go to this level now. International fixers.
Right.
I was told that Jeffrey Epstein's one of them. And I was told about a few more celebrities, and they will have access to boats and planes, so kids can be
just trafficked from anywhere.
And
this be here in hours instead of days type thing.
This links in now with what we're seeing in America with the Pizzagate. When there is this traffic of kids, and one girl, she said that I've been in a crate, but they would drug me. So I mean, they drug shark horses.
Like, they're making films about it now anyway. People send them into Egypt or whatever, or Arabs are getting them and things like that. I'm not saying they all do this, but you see these films where they're getting taken, never seen again.
You can be anaesthetised, and then you can wake up and you could be in Portugal, you know, and think, how did I get here? You know, and that's that. So the international fixers.
And it really is happening, isn't it?
Of course it is, Wow. And then the next group is this group, and they're called the Bloods. They're just termed the Bloods, and these are people very high up in prominent positions. They could be bloodline families, they could be big business, whatever. We're talking real at the top. And above them is this next group, and I'm going to deal with these 2 together, and it's called the Royals. They're termed the Royals, and again, we're not pointing any finger at anyone, but I was told it is what it is. Right, it is what it is, and again, I'm not making any allegations on a liabilistic front. And I said, well, what is it? She said, because they do many things. There is the sex with children. there is also, you know, the perversion needs to, because we've seen that now with Epstein, they've been sex with children and all that, but they need the blood. That's a
Yeah.
Just like, all the survivors that have spoken
What
to
do you
me.
mean the blood? They need blood and there's drinking blood.
Yeah, they're separate. It's just the names of the family, the bloodline family.
Yeah.
You know,
The royals need.
they need the blood. They need the blood.
Survive to everything in their heads. Yeah.
And what they do, I mean, I've had survivors speak to me from all over the UK, Ireland as well. And when they're little kids, they're used to kill the babies. Now the babies will come from. They could be drug addicts, some of their babies. They could be their own breeders.
Maybe,
their own people that they get pregnant.
Yeah.
One girl, she said, "I've got one son, but I've given birth to 5 children."
Yeah.
And she said, one girl told me that they got like a letter opener, and they gaffer taped it around her hand, and she had to insert it into a little baby's vagina and kill the baby.
Yeah.
She's told me about. She's also bitten a baby's heart.
Jesus.
And she said, and I said, well, what are they doing? She said they're wailing, they're laughing, and they would have special cages.
So what? I just asked you. Sorry, stop you. What is there a special thing that happens to someone? They're frightened.
Yes,
the
adrenochrome.
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 Yeah.
I mean, it's an en vogue name now.
What is that supposed to do?
Well, this girl said they cut a little boy open, and his heart was still beating. She said, and my job, I had to bite it. She'd have bit it. And he died, and she said this wave went over him, and they cracked the blood, and she said they were like high, you know,
like on crack or something.
She said if they don't get it, they suffer. So there is a need to feed this pyramid constantly. It constantly needs feeding.
Well, this pyramid needs collapsing.
Well, it does, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's. I mean, that was told to me by a victim and survivor. This is a woman who's actually gone to the police. The police have had this information. It's been corroborated by other victims and survivors. And I say to all of them, come here, the police, you need to tell them.
Can anyone do that to a baby?
And these investigations are always shut down. Always shut down. They've never, ever resulted in anyone from this level.
And how many people have come forward saying that?
I've had about 10 people say that's bang on. That's absolutely bang on. I spoke to, I would say, about 20 survivors of abuse that have killed babies, and they've told the police. They have actually told the police.
All using the same way.
Stabbing them and the hearts and everything.
Yeah.
Or stabbing them, cutting them. One girl told me, and she's now, I think she helps people now, and she said they made me cut the baby's throat, and I didn't want to cut this baby's throat. It was about 4 months old, and it was moving about, so I did it wrong. So what they did was they made her do it again, and as punishment, they inserted a red hot poker into this little girl's anus.
Right.
You know, and
do they dress up and
dressing up,
devil worship things,
and wear masks, and survivors.
So they can't see who they are.
Can't see them. They will be masked. They will wear animal masks.
So the ones
sometimes.
they use are these these at the bottom. They're the ones they use at the top to bite their bloods and
well they'll use the kids as well, so they will have their own children. So a spotter might be a little kid, but then the kids will have their life expectancy. They know that they're broken, they know they're damaged, they end up with mental health problems. No one's going to believe them. No, absolutely no one's going to believe them. They've got DID, they've got memory loss
and everything like that. Probably on drugs themselves,
and they've total memory loss, you know. But these memories start coming up when they get into their middle age, and all of a sudden they start remembering stuff. So it's difficult to believe.
It's horrible, isn't it?
But there have been many stated cases of this. There's been, I think, 12 prosecutions throughout the UK for violence and murders involving Satanism, but the UK won't recognise it as. It's a bit like assault and racially aggravated assault. It's still assault, but it's got an add-on. They won't accept it
as satanic.
No, America does.
Well, why can't they? Because, like you say, America does.
So, but here they won't do it. They belittle it and they cover it up. So it's. I mean, and ultimately, this is where life has taken me down this line. And
so these people are just getting away with murder.
They torture, are literally, and just filtered out. And the healing can begin. And one of the things here, Brian, and you might allude to this, you know, from the pain of confinement and everything else, you need justice.
Of course you do.
You know,
so you need justice to move on.
Yeah,
you have to have you have to see these people. They should be put away for life. They should never get out. Do it once and keep them in jail forever. They should bring you all together, because it's made me turn my stomach a bit today.
No,
and it's made me outraging, and I'm a Christian, and
but you can understand now the need for child pornography with these people, and they need to sexualise kids and all that.
Rubbish that I was just looking at was an accident. I was just being
rubbish,
bullshit. They're doing it. Sorry for swearing. They're doing it because the paedophiles.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
But prior to this interview, we were discussing as a collective group about what has come out. And the Pizzagate in America has come out, and hopefully, we can have another chat another time about the in-depth nature of this. And I know we've got a girl called Nikki who does a lot of it. Yeah. But that has come out. Yeah. And all of a sudden,
that's a great thing, isn't it? In a way, it proves what you're doing is right, and what you're doing is the truth.
I mean, we've had people mention priests. Cardinals and bishops. And there has gone on. I think Bishop Peter Ball was convicted. He was a close friend of Prince Charles. Prince Charles stood up for him, and he was, one lad died as a result, suicide because of what he was doing, and he was being protected at the highest level. And you think, for what? Why? If that was me, and even in the police, if one of my kids got arrested for shoplifting, I could lose my job. Yet how comes we've got still people high up in society that have got friends or whatever that are involved? I mean, we've got even Prince Andrew was alleged to be involved with Epstein.
Look at Buckingham Palace. My mate phoned me the other week and said, there's about 500 million people shouting paedophile out.
I was,
And I'm not saying he is, I'm just saying what the people are saying. And not one bit of it has been on national telly.
Not one bit.
What's all that about?
Whereas,
how does it? There's the proof. It's in the pudding there.
All the time.
Brushed under the table.
But isn't that the sign of the times? I mean, where else would you get people turning up and shouting paedophile, paedophile, paedophile?
Yeah.
We had it in the UK. I think the royal family. I can't see how anyone can want to follow them now. I mean, it's horrific, isn't it? And our politicians aren't serving us. No. Our chief constables and our commissioners of police are protecting this.
And they're not looking after us.
No.
They're supposed. That's what they're there for. Their job is to look after the public. We pay the taxes we pay for them.
Yeah, and we pay good money to be properly protected. And if anyone was to say, well, what would your priority be? Well, protect our children first.
Exactly. Got to be.
And yet they do the opposite of that. Yeah. And then when you get there was one MP, he sued because someone called him a paedophile, but he had a conviction of sexual assault against a minor. Yeah. And he said, no, I want to be referred to as a minor attracted person, a MAP. And someone who then said, well, you're a paedophile, they then lost their job and he got compensation. I mean, what world are we in?
It's crazy. But I just want to say to these people out there, these want to go hunting paedophiles. I think it's wrong, because what happens is they hunt them, they get them, they scream and shout at them, and the paedophile gets off. If you do hunt them and find them, phone the police to get them arrested. Because if you try to arrest them yourself and start hitting them, they're going to get off with the case. So you're just making their case stronger. So I've watched quite a few about it.
And also, if they're filming them, you could then end up with a murder. You're all going to be liable for that murder, and then that will shut any more paedophile hunting down. And like Brian said, 100% with you. If you do it like a store detective does it.
Exactly.
Detain them, have the evidence. You can record your evidence, but don't live stream it. There's no
and
need.
Don't say to them, you've done this and you're a paedophile, screaming at them, because then you're making them look, so you're bullying them into saying something that, even though they have done it, let the police do their job.
That's right. And swallow your pride. Get rid of the pride. You let them do your job. And
you've done a great thing by finding them and having them arrested. Then you're going to spoil it, because I've seen loads get off with it because they've threatened them. And they've punched them or whatever, and they've ended up in jail themselves. So it's not worth it.
But hasn't it come to something? Then we have to rely on vigilantism.
Our own people, the people on the street shouldn't have to do it. The police should be doing it.
Actively doing it. And then you see what we're getting, and I want to put this out now. We've got this phenomenal change in our times when people are being drawn together like never before. That I am sitting breaking bread with Brian, with Big Chris Lambiano, and it was Terry Ellis, Stephen Fred, all coming together, and survivor groups coming together, all of us, and we are going to be trying to take the government. Not take them on in a sort of a revolution sense, but holding them accountable as a huge collective and with a lot of experience behind us, and just say, if you don't do your jobs, then F off, you go. And someone else will do your job.
Of course, that's all you want. We just have to say, save the children. Like John says, this is happening every day of the week. People are getting off with it, and people are turning a blind eye. You've got to stand up and do the right thing. Do the right thing. That's all you've got to do.
And people love your children. They're so precious. Love your children. You know, do your best for them. Don't leave them on their own. They're vulnerable, and you know, love your children. They're the most precious gift. But I mean, I'm sorry to have hogged everything.
No, it's okay. Well, I mean, what you've got out there is letting people know what's really going on in this world, and this man is 100%. Like I say, I don't speak to police, but this man, what he's doing is phenomenal, and you've got to follow him and watch what he's doing and help him. And without you guys, this man can't keep doing what he's doing. We need help, don't we? Everyone has to get together, and we all have to help us.
I'm in the North East. Last week I was in with Terry in North London. Then I'll be over somewhere else, and I just think what we've got is brilliant. I am totally, I am really blown away by how we've all come together.
It's fantastic,
you know. And I do it because for me, Jesus don't want the kids hurt. He don't want them hurt.
No.
Jesus is real. Believe me, he is real. So get yourself to church. And listen to this man because he's telling the truth, and believe what he's saying. So this is an eye opener for people. Thank you for listening to today. I'm Brian Cockerill. This is Jon Wedger.
Thank you so much, mate. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.
God bless everyone.